February 9th to the 12th. And I hope everybody will consider joining us. The registration is open. So please take a second to check it out. If you haven't been to Beyond before, it's 3.5 days of professional development. We make sure that you are leaving us with some concrete tools and resources and strategies that you can use immediately as soon as you get back to your programs. So today we are very excited to have the amazing Jodi Grant, Executive Director of the Afterschool Alliance, with us today. We're going to have a kind of unscripted conversation about what's going on in the world of after school. And Jodi's going to share how local, state, and federal policies could be influencing your programs. And we hope that you will share some of your hurdles and successes so that it can inform policy moving forward. So thanks, Jodi. I will turn it over to you, and then maybe we'll have our guests introduce themselves.
Yeah, excellent. So, and then, I think Paula already put it in the chat room, but feel free, especially if you have questions, to come online, because this is as much an opportunity for, I'm actually not sitting there right now, but I'm on Capitol Hill in Washington, DC, getting a national perspective to hear the successes and challenges you're facing and what some of the things we can be doing as advocates to support you are, as well as to tell you what I'm seeing as the lay of the land. So for those of you that don't know me or our organization, I'm with the Afterschool Alliance. We partner with 50 state after-school networks. So there's one in your state, as well as, every major national provider. And if you don't get our newsletters, you should. They're free. We work with over 25,000 after-school providers, providing tools, resources, data, information to really help you do what you do, because that's what makes us wake up in the morning. So, I want to start with a gratitude and just thank all of you, because from where I'm sitting nationally, you have been absolutely tremendous. The after-school field has, throughout the pandemic, been nimble and flexible and jumped through hoops, and it's been exhausting to meet the needs of kids and families. And I think one of the most exciting things we've seen nationally is a recognition of that. And if you are not aware, and actually this is a question for everyone, the most recent COVID legislation that was passed has money that was explicitly targeted for after school at the state levels with state education agencies. There was of the money that was set aside, there was about $1 billion set aside just for after school enrichment and $1 billion set aside just for summer learning enrichment. And there's over $30 billion of money that can be used for recovery and for students. And recovery was defined broadly. So it's not just academic recovery. We're hearing from parents, from kids themselves, from providers that there's a real need for social recovery after kids being isolated so long, real concerns about mental health. And so after school and summer learning were explicitly underlined as examples for states and local education agencies to use these recovery dollars for that. And most recently, 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately I was not there in person because I was in bed with COVID, but the Department of Ed had a huge event with Secretary of Education Cardona and Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, where they announced this huge new initiative called Engage Every Student. And if you're not aware of that, it is the first time in my 18 years in the after-school world that we have had a U.S. Secretary of Education announce the goal of after school for all. So the goal is that every child that wants to be in an after-school program should have access to a high-quality after-school program. And now it's our job to make that happen, which is easier said than done. But the real goal there is to tap into some of these COVID dollars to do it. So one of the questions I'm going to have for all of you is, are you tapping into those COVID dollars, particularly the ones in your school districts? Because what we're finding is if you do, if you buy aggregate data, most school districts say they're doing after school and summer, but when we dig deeper, they are not doing it in the way that we would like to see them do it. So there's not necessarily partnerships. They're not necessarily involving community-based organizations. It might just be tutoring and not something much more comprehensive. And we're also finding that the programs, after-school programs that are able to tap into these dollars can use them for things like staffing, recruiting, retention, which I'm also hearing is a really huge issue in the field. So trying to provide some of those resources. So I think we are laser focused right now at the Afterschool Alliance in how do we get some of these federal dollars to you in the field. And we have all sorts of tools and resources on our website, www.afterschoolalliance.org. Also on the Every Student Succeed website that we are running behind the scenes to help you tap into those dollars, but also to share success stories of those dollars, because we have a whole map. The more we can show school districts, communities like theirs that are using these dollars in a way that is really holistically meeting the needs of kids, we're hoping the more likely it is that we can replicate it. So that is my introductory spiel. But what I really want to do is respond to your thoughts, questions, and ideas. And I know, and I'm hugely thankful to my fellow panelists that have joined me. So I'm hoping, starting with you, Chandler, if you can do a brief introduction of who you are, where you're based, what you do, and then Brensha, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, if you could do the same, and then we can dive into a discussion.
Thank you, Jodi. Appreciate it, and thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting me. I really appreciate that. My name is Chandler Dixon. I am an education specialist with WestStat Inc., working with the Texas Education Agency. We are providing technical assistance for Texas grantees who were awarded the Nita and Lally 21st Century Grant. I've been working in out of school time field for about 20 years. I started when I was 10. No, I'm just kidding. So I've had an opportunity to, I'm based in San Antonio, so I had an opportunity to work with one of the largest school districts there. And just super excited to be able to be in the out of school time industry, to be able to help with potential. We're in that safe space for our students. And I feel that that is where the embedded academics and the disguised learning happens. And it is just a great opportunity to see the potential of what our students can do in that time frame. And it's marvelous. I'm a big STEM advocate, big STEM junkie, and anytime there's an opportunity for us to be able to provide those opportunities, I'm on board, and I'm cheering louder than probably anyone else and stands for that. So thank you for allowing me to join you all today.
So Chandler, what are you seeing as, like, especially as we're dealing with, I don't even want to say recovery from COVID, but the new normal with COVID, the big successes and the big challenges facing the programs you're working with in Texas?
I think that, COVID kind of opened the doors for the potential for a new normal, so to speak. I think and out of school time, I think it was the first time for us to be able to have that virtual component to where we were able to reach more students. There's a lot of times that students want to stay in our school programs, but they are pulled in various different directions with other extracurriculars. And I think with COVID, it gave a lot of our grantees, a lot of our districts and organizations an opportunity to reach those students virtually and allow them to join into those out of school time programs that are offered every day after school. But some of those students don't get a chance to do that, as well as our parents as well. We saw a high increase in parental involvement, being able to use the virtual platform, that feedback-based feedback, saying that, a lot of times parents are dealing with, work or lack of transportation or things of that nature, and being able to, jump on a Zoom and participate with other families, whether in a focus group or just together, gave them an opportunity to feel more connected with their community, and gave them an opportunity to kind of share their voice. So there was a lot there, and to be able to see that, it was an asset it was challenging. It also saw some inadequacies within structures of technology, but it also gave our a foundation to really kind of springboard into the next chapter of what out of school time can be and look like in terms of technology and inclusiveness. So very excited about where we're going to go from here in Texas.
And are you seeing that the grantees you're working with, are they able to tap into these COVID dollars? Is it hit or miss? Is it?
I think it's really depending on their district or organization. A lot of districts are planning to reach out for those dollars. It's just, again, it's kind of one of those things where they want to make sure that they're fully aware of the guidelines or the requirements to be able to utilize those dollars in a way that effectively and efficiently works with their community. No one wants to say, I'll take it, and then not be able to fulfill the requirements that are necessary in order to do their due diligence to make it effective and efficient for their community.
So that's
we're definitely trying.
That's actually a perfect intersection of where we can help nationally too. And for all of you, and particularly, Chandler, since you're in the thick of this, is if we need to get better guidance from the Department of Ed on what can be done, because my understanding is it's very, very flexible. The idea is to give a lot of autonomy to local communities to do this. That said, we absolutely want to be able to show that it's success, because from where I'm sitting, we want to get public dollars to fill in the hole when these federal dollars are gone. So we need to show that it was not just a good expenditure, but a necessary expenditure. And I think the really exciting, oh, look, everybody's coming online. The really exciting part is this administration really gets that. And I think that if you look to, the Department of Education, they see the holistic approach of these partnerships as one of the, hopefully just like the virtual piece, one of these ways that we can come back stronger and better with real community learning. So I would welcome to hear challenges that people are facing, because I do think, one of the things we're hearing is that a lot of school districts are really leery to give money to anyone that's not their employee or not working within their walls for a variety of reasons. And how do we use the bully pulpit that we have at the U.S. Department of Ed to get guidance that will help make some of these school districts more comfortable in sharing that. So I have a feeling we just put everybody on the screen, huh? I would love it if each of you that are joining us could just maybe show your face for at least a few minutes and tell us who you are and where you are and what you do, your relationship to after school. And then, of course, if you have any questions, you can speak up or put them in the chat for both me and for Chandler, because we have quite an expert fellow panelist here.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dombeck from Illinois with 4-H, and I work with the underserved population and the after-school programs.
Awesome. And Kathy, where are you based in Illinois?
I am in Northern Illinois. I have Boone, DeKalb, and Ogle counties.
Excellent. And are you getting any COVID dollars?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It might be through state, but in our office, I don't know of any COVID dollars that have come to us.
Yeah, the state dollars is interesting. Some of the states, and I don't know offhand where Illinois is, but we definitely have it on our website. Some of the states literally just gave the money to Title I schools to give out more or to do, and some of the states have been really creative in working with state after-school networks and community-based organizations to try to get dollars to entities that aren't necessarily operating in Title I schools, but are also serving populations where after school is really needed. So to try and reach, other kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elle Essenbacher, and I'm with Harmony SEL and Inspire Teaching and Learning. And I just appreciate our relationship, our partnership with foundations. And I was interested to hear your expertise, Jodi. So happy to be listening in.
Awesome. And Elle, where are you based?
I work remotely. Our office is based in San Diego, but I live in Northern Colorado. Currently, I'm in Michigan.
I'm in the middle of Colorado right now.
I'm in Northern Colorado, Windsor, out by Fort Collins.
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm pretending to be on vacation, but I'm not. I'm in the mountains.
Okay.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Carolyn Jones, and we have a STEM program. In fact, I just came back from the closing of one of our schools for the summer, and it was for the elementary school students. No, we do not get COVID funds at all, but we are moving forward with every bit of the funding we can get from wherever we can get it, because the students really need it. As we were ending up the program today, there are many parents asking so many questions about, okay, what now? For the month of August, I have to go to work. And so what happens to my child? Who's going to take care? There's no school programs left. So it's something that we really need to consider having, not just for the summer in July, but also maybe a few days in August to help the parents out.
And Caroline, where are you based?
Oh, I'm in Maryland, Prince George's County.
Oh, you're in PG.
Mhm.
All right, so we should figure out how we can get some of these COVID dollars to you so that you can operate. Because, obviously, like just being able to, that's like a huge success story if we could operate for 2 more weeks, right? And
Right.
with some of these dollars. So yeah, we should, if you're not already, are you familiar with the Maryland State Network, Most and Ellie Mitchell?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay. Well, I would definitely say, like, let's see what resources we might have on our website, Ellie might have, because we absolutely want to make the case to, our PG County leaders that they should be doing more in the community. And I think most of the 21st century sites are not in PG County, right? They're in other parts of the state. I think there's like 1 or 2 in Montgomery. So,
That's correct.
yeah. Right. Thank you. Others?
Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Pimentel, and I am in Virginia Beach, Virginia, with the Parks and Recreation. And so we are very lucky as the only city within Hampton Roads that operates after-school programs in every school in the city. So we're in 56 elementary schools for after-school programs. So we have a great partnership with the schools. And then for summer, we operate in about 25 of the schools for the summer. So children are able to, come to our programs. We offer early childhood programs as well. So we kind of set the standard for our area for after school programming and learning and opportunities. We have had COVID money. We stayed open through the pandemic and offered a kind of hybrid learning. So the kids would come to our programs. They would have their Chromebooks and do learning for half the day, and then the other half would be after school programming. It was definitely something difficult to maneuver through, but realistically, it gave us and our staff an opportunity to do more planning in the sense of curriculum based. So there were less of the, games that we could do because we couldn't, share items and couldn't. So a lot of programming came out of that. A lot of staff who were kind of apprehensive about their skills were really heightened. And that's where we put a lot of staff development and training in. And that's my role with learning and development, to make sure they had more tools for the academic piece, and then the correlation of school and after school so that we could meet the needs of the children in the program. And we were really, really successful with that.
So I have a comment and a question for you. So my first comment is, like, Bravo, and it's hubs, like what we were calling them hubs, but these hybrid learning centers that really helped us make the case for more money directly to after school during the pandemic, and I think are very much helping us make the case for, you know, increases in federal funding for after school, even with the COVID dollars out there. So I would love if we could connect offline and we can highlight some of what you just told us nationally as one of the models that we can lift up of what happened during the pandemic and what you're doing now with the COVID dollars. I'm also wondering what challenges you're facing, even though you have some of these COVID dollars.
I think we struggled actually in the last, we're doing a bit better now, but realistically, we were struggling with staffing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting people to come back to work, finding it feasible to you know, return to the workforce, finding qualified applicants. And we took some of that funding to put into, again, with, you know, staff development, but also with wage increases so that we could, you know, get the qualified candidates, get people who felt comfortable saying, okay, I can return to work, you know, that we faced the, you know, it was cheaper for me to stay at home versus go to work. You know, so us being able to increase our wages, and we just actually had a wage increase where what we consider our leaders, our lead staff of a program is making $19 an hour. You know, so we are seeing quality candidates coming through, people who are coming back to the workforce who are qualified to work in our programs, and we are at a fabulous staffing situation right now. I think because of some of that, where people were ready to go back and needed to make it work for their families.
No, that's great. And I'm actually hearing that nationally too. Like when we've done surveys of the field, we have found that the programs that are able to tack into COVID dollars, it's very common to use those, you know, because our staff they've been, you know, Herculean in what they've done to use that to actually increase wages, increase benefits, and provide more professional development, which is obviously something we need to be, you know, I think COVID has, you know, lifted the veil on the dirty little secret that we don't have enough resources to pay our staff what they deserve and the benefits they deserve. So hopefully this is an opportunity, and it's, you know, it's bigger than our field, but to start, you know, looking at all of the people that work with our children and youth and make sure that they can get, you know, not just a living wage, but a wage where they can, you know, have a life and still have, you know, the good thing we have is the work is meaningful, but be able to do this meaningful work and, you know, be able to have a family or, you know, other things, not feel that they can't afford to. So.
Absolutely. It was definitely a game changer for us. And I think, like I said, we're setting the bar for our area for that standard. And I think that it's going to make a huge difference in the field for the people that we're bringing in.
And I think we're hearing that too. And, you know, again, all of you, like, feel free. This is just the beginning. Like, we really do want to hear what's happening in your communities. You know, a bunch of the funders have been asking us to get a better sense of what it truly costs to provide high quality after school and summer learning. And I think that for far too long, you know, like when we look at federal dollars, we say it's you know, 1,000 per kid, but that's really the federal dollars if they're supplemented, the 21st century dollars, with all sorts of other resources. So to get a handle on, especially with inflation, with the world that we're in now, what it truly costs to pay our staff adequately, to give them benefits, and to run a high quality program with a good staff to student ratio. So thank you.
I have a question for Jenny. What type of, you said you ran a hybrid learning center. What type of technology, I asked because I'm very interested in STEM, what type of technology did you utilize within your program? And what effects did you see that have on your students who were in your program?
So every child in the city, in our school district in Virginia Beach is issued a Chromebook. So they're given one that they use throughout. It stays with them through their elementary, middle school, high school, and then they turn it in at graduation. So they have a Chromebook. So they all have the access to that technology piece. And so based out of the school, or if we were at a rec center, you know, we were able to get onto that Wi-Fi connection. Some of our programs allowed us to use like the Mondo boards that were in the room. So some teachers were doing it depending on the age group. And we had several children that were, part of one classroom. They could kind of join as a group. Of course, we saw technology issues, and that was across the board, especially when this started. Everyone trying to get onto the network, so we saw a lot of crashing of the system. But once we got it down pat, it really worked well, where we literally set up our program to look like a classroom. We had tables set up, they were by grade. Our staff would facilitate and go from like table to table, assisting with technology and sound and anything that they needed. We really let the teachers lead, but we were there in a different capacity that we had never been before. Being after school, we did have time for homework help, but we didn't have time like we did now that was really engaging our staff in more of the learning aspect. And like I said, it really helped them grow, not thinking that they could do this, they turned around. And Jodi, you mentioned ratio. We were operating on state ratio, but when COVID hit, we dropped our ratio to 1 to 15. And we've kept it that way because we found that the smaller group of children is more meaningful, so we have not increased our numbers in that sense of groups, because we do group cohorts by age. And so they're grouped in still groups of 15. But those children having access to the Chromebooks made things so much easier because everything was loaded on there, everything they needed, all the access, all the activity. So we really just kind of facilitated it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That was great.
So anyone else want to chime in? Let us know how you're surviving the pandemic and coming out of it.
Hello, Jodi. This is Brent Cummings from
I almost called on you, Brent.
Yes, from Walla Walla, Washington. I actually work for Walla Walla Public Schools. I've been a career 21st Century Community Learning Center professional at this point, 17 years in 21st century, and recently transitioned to kind of a department of one that manages some of the strategic recovery plans and COVID dollars for our district. And so we accessed at the state level through our Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction or State Department of Ed after school supplemental funding. So a lot of the COVID dollars came to our state, and our state decided to open them up through our 21st century cohorts to expand or create new sites through geographic regions in the state of Washington. And having longtime programs at Walla Walla Public Schools, we added a new elementary site and then really leveraged dollars to create robust summer programs. And so in the past summer, in the summer of 21, we had a full 1/3 of our district come. So we have a district of 5,500. We had 1,700 students come to summer program and leveraged a kind of a multifaceted program where the morning was a accelerated learning type program where we leveraged dollars to have core content teachers during the school day come in and work with small groups of students in a kind of a relational tutoring based setting. Then those students transitioned into an enrichment program where additional students came in mid-morning and worked through a variety of offerings with community partners. So we leveraged, a dozen community-based organizations, nonprofits, youth development providers to offer enrichment type programming. And then in the afternoon, we partnered with Parks and Rec and local YMCA to extend offerings through the afternoon and subsidize those offerings for families. And so quite a robust program and continue that program this year as well. And so that's kind of how the money flowed to the districts for outside of school time through our state, kind of using the 21st century framework as the best way, because we have a long-standing successful 21st century and it's geographically diverse throughout the state of Washington, representative of the many different regions. And so that was a good pathway to get money immediately out to areas in need. And then following that, about 6 months later, community-based organization grants with COVID specific money, we're starting to open up. And then our role in our district was to really, we have our pulse to that funding and then pass those along to our networks of community-based organizations in our town. And as a result, many of those organizations were also able to receive that funding because we kind of, from a school district perspective, did the hand holding through the access and granting and accessibility framework to get those organizations funds.
And I think one of the things that makes Walla Walla, really special is the fact that, you're working for the school district. So I think one of the things we have seen is this, it's easier to have success when there's already a relationship between the after school programs and the school districts that was solid on the ground prior to COVID. So, and it's really exciting for me when we see people from our field really being in a position to bridge those gaps even further. Brent, I have two things I wanted to ask you, which is first, I'm curious what challenges you're seeing programs face if you are with these COVID funds. And then second, I'm just going to call you out as being one of our extraordinary after-school ambassadors. And I wanted to let everybody else on this panel know that the Afterschool Alliance is really proud to take a handful of superstars from the field that are usually site directors. So Brent was at the time site director, multiple site director, and work with you to become local, statewide, and national advocates for after school, and to keep our feet on the ground, and to provide advice to our organization. And Brent is just like a spectacular example of why I think it's one of the best things we do, this after school ambassador program. And also to flag for you that in the past 3 years now, we've had a youth ambassador program. So if you're in programs, check out our youth ambassador program. We pay the kids, we give them a stipend, and we really work with them so that their voice is influencing national policies. And our youth have met with the White House Domestic Policy Council, with senators, recently with the Secretary of Education, to really let them know what they think we ought to be doing for kids. So I'm going to hit you back, Brent, with those two questions. One, if you can just tell us a little bit about, encourage people to think about the ambassador program, and two, what challenges you see with COVID or that you're still dealing with in Walla Walla.
Yeah, thank you, Jodi. My ambassadorship, I think, was 2014, 2015, and it was a formative experience in my career where I matured to a point where just really focused on point of service type delivery for outside of school time. And this was really an eye-opening experience to what that macro, that national level perspective looked like, and being able to collaborate and, affect significant change. Was an amazing experience. But the best part of that experience was the network of relationships that was established, and kind of having a pulse to what might be coming down the road. And from that experience, there was the initial conversations around, well, it's great to have us out here, but we should have youth out there. And so in the first youth ambassador cohort, we were able to have a student from Walla Walla come out. This student had never really left Walla Walla, never flown on a plane before, out, then all of a sudden out in DC, speaking with US senators and congressional representatives, super impactful, just touring the city, learning firsthand the history of our, the history of Washington, DC and our country. Amazing experience. And it was awesome to live vicariously through this young person's eye-opening experience there. So I can't say enough about the program. If you're on this call, inquire about it, ask about it, get your dynamic youth involved in the youth program if possible. Amazing experience. The second side, I think I always go down to the point of service level, and the biggest challenges of COVID right now, and maybe as you see a flow of money, maybe something that, maybe for a heavier allocation in my mind would be early childhood development, or our young students coming into schools. And so within our district, and maybe representative of the rest of you also, but our kindergartners and first graders coming in, they didn't get their preschool experience. They didn't get that early elementary experience or whatever it is. And so they're coming back and we have no idea who they are. And there's already challenges in those grade levels for the young people that we serve, but much more pronounced right now. So that's a huge challenge. And then the other challenge is, I'm not sure if others are experiencing it, but enrollment is way down at those grade levels also. It's like, where did these kids go? Are they coming back? Are they going to re-engage? And so accessing families and getting them back into schools as well as after school programs, and then meeting the social, emotional, and maybe possibly traumatic and stress-based experiences of our young people at those pre-K, K, and kind of first, second grade levels is a big challenge for us right now.
Thanks. I can ask you all questions unless somebody else wants to ask a question. All right, so my first question, and if you're not online, maybe you can just do it by like raising your hand on the Zoom, is how many of you have been able to tap into federal COVID dollars? So it's low, right? It's the two people that have spoken up. How many of you, of everybody else besides Brent and Jenny, could use the COVID dollars? That's a softball, guys. And my other question, since I'm hearing a lot, is how many of you are seeing recruitment and retention as a real issue right now, as a big problem?
Not only for your students, but for your staff.
Yeah, that's true, right. And then the other thing I'm hearing about, and I would welcome thoughts from those of you in the field, I can tell you what we're thinking nationally, is it depends where you are in the country, but there's a lot of cultural wars going on over language and curriculum, and it tends to be more in the school than out of school, because out of school by its very nature is voluntary, but that it's getting into the after school space. So, you know, what curriculum you can teach, what language you can use can be a real challenge for some of our programs, especially, you know, I was just listening, you know, when Brent, when you use the word social emotional learning, and I know that there are like states that have outlawed social emotional learning, right? So, so how our field is navigating that, because obviously the non-academic piece and the relationship piece is one of our sweet spots. You know, it's if you look at developmental relationships and reports of kids, you know, after school is where those strongest relationships happen. And so so I can share like some national perspectives and some polling perspectives, but I'm wondering if any of you are dealing with that on the ground and what you're experiencing. All right, so I'm guessing nobody's, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, from the Washington-based perspective and locally, I mean, I guess we've doubled down on social emotional learning more now than ever. It's like, if we're going to get to the academics, I mean, the school day understands this intimately. We were heading that direction, but more now than ever, if we're going to get to the academics, we have to be addressing our kids' adverse childhood experiences. We have to be addressing you know, these social emotional skill sets, you know, emotion coaching, empathy, initiative, problem solving, teamwork, you know, whatever it is, and however you define that. You know, in the state of Washington, I think we have standards aligned with CASEL-based standards around social emotional learning. So it's really there. And so I guess I'm naive to learn that some states have outlined a framework around social emotional learning.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
uniquely in Walla Walla, you know, we had some formative resilience research occur in our area, and you know, some documentaries from Jamie Redford that really centered the work, you know, over the last couple of decades around resilience and adverse childhood experiences. So it's intimately involved, and I guess the point is that now more than ever, you know, from our recent historical perspective, there is an intersection of a multitude of different types of trauma that relate to each other that we have to address in our educational settings. And after school time, outside of school time, is a perfect environment to have skilled facilitators to address that work.
I have to agree with Brent. I had no idea that that was something that was challenging anywhere else, because we have 4 early childhood programs that we service. And each one of those programs has about 35 to 40 children in the programs, and their focus is social emotional learning. They have a stringent preset curriculum that is based off that. Like I said, I'm with learning and development, so I am facilitating training for all of our staff, our before and after school staff, early childhood staff. A lot of it is the Weichert system that we do a lot of teachings of. And so that's not a challenge nor not a focus for us. That's something that we are, teaching and training them from, day one, they start with us and facilitating throughout their, career with us. So I didn't know that was something that wasn't elsewhere, but we focus on that not only for our children, but for our staff as well. We offer a lot of trainings that will help with staff facilitating with their own emotions and how to gauge that into the program, so that they're the best and healthiest that they can be to run a quality program as well.
So Jodi, I just wanted to sort of jump in and say, I don't know that social emotional learning has gone away. I think it's about how you talk about it in those places that you can't use that language, social emotional learning. As we were thinking about the conference and planning for the conference, we did have conversations with states who are not allowed to use that language, but they're still doing the work, right? So instead, they're calling it a physical and mental well-being. So after school is resilient, right? We are told we can't do something, but we'll figure out a way to do it anyway.
Well, I was gonna say that's and it's not just social emotional learning. Like, we have had states that have literally said you can't use the word equity. That's after school is all about creating opportunities for kids. But I think what we've learned in the polling and in places where this really is a hot button issue is if you use an acronym, you're in trouble. If you explain what you're actually doing, we often see enormous success. So, sometimes using equity could be a red flag, but if you talk about how we're creating opportunities that otherwise the kids we're serving wouldn't have, this is not a zero-sum game. We're trying to lift all kids and create opportunities for all kids. I think in those communities that works really well. I think when we talk about social emotional learning, I think in places where it's been a challenge, instead of using social emotional learning, parents and others, they actually explain the curriculum. Here's what we're doing. And that most parents, they actually want their kids to feel safe and to feel like they belong and to have adult mentors and peers that they can talk to and to learn how, if they've dealt with trauma, or if they're having mental health challenges, which is, through the roof, right? CDC, did a survey of youth, and if you looked at it, anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation way up, and it was pretty high before COVID. Surgeon General issued a national warning about children's mental health. I think when we talk about, bringing in a social worker or a therapist to meet with kids that want to be part of that group, that's all. It's in the details that we win. And I've seen programs. I did a panel with someone from Fairbanks, Alaska, that was very much feeling this. And they started showing parents, saying, well, one of the things, the social emotional learning thing we're doing is this big school production. If you don't want your kid to be part of the production, they can do something else in after school. And guess how many parents didn't want their kids to be part of that production, right? It was 0 when they realized that what was really going on in the curriculum. So it's, I think we always do better when we show rather than tell what we're doing with kids, because I do think one of the beautiful things about after school is we never ask our kids or our families what their political background is. It's irrelevant. What is relevant is, meeting their needs and helping them, grow up to be as full-fleshed human beings as possible. But it's very much an issue in certain areas of the country. And yeah, to the point where you have to, I'm really glad that most of you aren't seeing that, where you have to really go back and even rename some of your curriculum to make sure that you can still do it.
I'd be curious to hear from the Harmony SEL person on the call, who, what their experiences are, how do they simplify language or demonstrate this type of outside of school time framework so parents and stakeholders have an understanding of what it is without maybe couching it in the education ease.
So are you seeing that with Harmony, or are you not seeing it at all? Or did we lose you?
Elle's still here, but I don't know if maybe she's unable to unmute right now.
Yeah.
But she is going to be doing a webinar with us on September 28th. So I'm sure she'll have lots to say if you all come back for that.
Excellent. And as I said, there are places, you know, Jenny and Brent, you brought this up, where it's just the opposite. They've doubled down on SEL. And, you know, I think New Hampshire just, you know, put out a statement about, you know, how important it is. And places where they've doubled down on equity and diversity and, you know, really making it, you know, you talk to people in particularly like a place like San Francisco, and this is like, you know, one of the top talking points for programs. And in other communities, I think we can still operate the same programs we've always operated that are really effective. We just have to talk about them a little differently.
In Illinois, I haven't encountered any issues with it at all.
Great. It is, it's really, I would say that's when I've gone, the few times that I've actually gotten to go see people in person over the last 6 months, before I had COVID, was that's what you'd see a room and you get this reaction where you'd have some people that like haven't heard this, and other after school programs where parents and school boards have been demanding to see the curriculum and, you know, been concerned about it until it was explained to them. So again, and I guess that just highlights some of the divisions we have in this country right now. Right, so
Jodi, we
anything,
talked a little bit about staffing issues or retention of staff. And one of the things that recently came out of the White House was the National Partnership for Student Success. I think it was the initiative to bring in 200,000 more mentors or volunteers. Would you talk about that a little bit?
thank you, Brent. So yes, so I think one of the things we found from our surveys, and it seems, you know, clear from those of you that have spoken up, is that staffing for our programs is a challenge. And one thing I do want to flag is that we have a whole toolkit of some of the creative things that have been done around staffing on our webpage, Afterschool, you know, www.afterschoolalliance.org. And we have absolutely found that places that have COVID federal dollars have been able to use them to pay staff more and or offer benefits, whether it's healthcare benefits, childcare benefits, other benefits that have really helped with recruitment and retention. I was actually at the Partnership for Student Success, so I see it very much as a complement to the Engage Every Student initiative. I think that's where I got COVID. So, but anyway, at the Partnership for Student Success is a real opportunity to coordinate between educators and the Corporation for National Service to get more mentors. So get those, you know, relationships into schools and after school. And so there is some additional money that is being offered through the Corporation for National Service to help with recruitment of Americorps and VISTA volunteers that programs can tap into. I have to say, one of my challenges with the Partnership for Student Success, while I think it's terrific because I think it can help with some of our staffing, is that like so many other things coming out of education, it is still predominantly school-based focused as opposed to CBO-based focused. So one of the things I'm pushing them to do is to create more resources that are really targeted to community-based organizations, parks and recs, others, as opposed to school districts. And, you know, an example I want to give is when I was at this meeting, I said, you know, do we have toolkits to help people apply to be Americorps providers so that you could have Americorps come work in your program? And the response I got was, well, we have an excellent toolkit for superintendents, right? But that's fine for superintendents, but many of us, you know, that's not where we're going to get our Americorps volunteers from. So it's something very much, I think it creates a huge opportunity. One of the things I've actually talked to Michael Smith, who is the new head of the Corporation for National Service about, which I think could be really interesting, is part-time Americorps volunteers. So if you are fortunate enough to live in a place where there might be a college nearby, we actually have someone on our team that was a part-time AmeriCorps volunteer. So she worked in after school a couple hours a week, got paid through national service dollars, got all the educational benefits of being a national service volunteer, and was able to continue her college education and rely on her college dormitory and other resources. So looking at, you know, ways that we might be able to supplement paraprofessionals that are in schools to be after school volunteers through federal AmeriCorps dollars. So I think there's some really interesting models there. There's and you can think about it for graduate students too. That could be, you know, whether you're studying social work or psychiatry or, you know, so many different areas where we could bring in people part-time. Or, you know, one of the other problems with AmeriCorps and Vista, and my daughter's about to be a Vista, is particularly Vistas, you don't even make minimum wage. AmeriCorps, they're doing a little bit better. And so some of this doing it part-time can enable people to, you know, keep a job while they're doing it, or make it more appealing, because what's super appealing about the work is actually the interaction, right, with the kids in the programs, whether you're a Vista and doing, you know, some of the back end infrastructure building, or whether you're on the ground doing direct service. So I think there's a real opportunity there. I think at the national level, the Afterschool Alliance is part of both initiatives, and really trying to figure out how we can leverage the two different programs to strengthen our field. And I would be curious, you know, if any of you are using AmeriCorps workers in your programs. If not, what you might need to make that happen. Do you know who the AmeriCorps providers are in your state or region? Because I think it is a real opportunity, and it's, you know, and it could potentially be a really interesting long-term solution, both with full-time and part-time AmeriCorps volunteers. So show of hands, does anybody in their programs get AmeriCorps volunteers money? I don't see a single hand. So clearly this is an area that, how many of you, if you had AmeriCorps volunteers that were being paid and they were local college students, or, you know, people, you know, retirees, because you can have older AmeriCorps, or paraprofessionals, how many of you would welcome them to your programs, could use that? All right, so that's good. I'm going to take that back with me, and we will keep working to navigate some of this, and to share information through our newsletters with all of you too, because, you know, on the one hand, you know, the AmeriCorps for the direct service is tremendous, but, you know, I just mentioned, so my little brag moment before we go off the air, my 19-year-old is going to be a full-time Vista, and she's going to be working in the state of Maryland. So, so for my PG people, maybe you can actually work with my daughter on mental health, and bringing in resources, particularly mental health first aid training to staff and older students that can be trained, and sort of toolkits and resources along those lines. So very much to deal with some of the challenges in our field and our space. So I think there's a lot of ways that, one of the things we want to do is blend and braid the resources that are out there to take pressure off of our programs and bring in resources. Right, well, even though many of you were silent, I hope this was educational for you. A huge thank you to Chandler for being my partner in all of this, and to those of you that did weigh in with some of the amazing things you're doing. I really thank you. It really helps when I'm sitting in Washington to hear what's really happening, and to everything we do at the Afterschool Alliance is to help really reach more kids with high quality programs on the ground. So when we see that that's happening, boy, does it make waking up in the morning a lot more enjoyable. So that is our goal. And if nothing else, please take away that the Afterschool Alliance is here to be a resource to you. So please use our resources. If there's things we don't have that you need, let us know. And we may or may not be able to do them, but if we can, we will. And if you're seeing challenges, particularly right now in accessing some of the federal COVID dollars, we want to hear your stories. We want to see where we can break down those barriers. And if you are having success, we want to share your story. So please make sure, and you can email me directly. I can't figure out how to put my email in the chat, but I'm sure someone could do that for me.
Thank you, Jodi. We appreciate your time. We know you've got an insane schedule, and the fact that you're willing to take an hour out of your week to be with us, we really appreciate it. And Chandler, thank you so much. And everyone else who was bravely unmuted and shared their stories with us, we really appreciate you as well. If you would please take a minute to fill out our survey. We are actively trying to improve each time, and we really love your feedback. Jodi's session at the conference is always one of our favorites, so please consider joining us in Orlando, February 9th through the 12th at the Beyond School Hours Conference. The registration is open. If anyone is interested in presenting, our call for presenters is still live as well, so please take a minute and check that out. Paula will make sure all of that stuff is in the chat for you. Again, thank you all for taking your time on a Wednesday and joining us in the summer. We appreciate you, and check out our schedule for the upcoming webinars. Like Paula said, Elle is doing one soon. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.